judge should be concerned about making sure that the public trusts their court. It's not going to be perfect. We all are human, but we want a court system that the public can say this is a place legitimately that I can resolve my disputes.
Welcome, everybody, to the 2024 interviews with candidates for our Nevada judges. And today I have Todd Prall. You are a candidate for Justice of the Peace, Department 1 in Henderson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, my first question is, what the hell is the difference between a Justice of the Peace and a judge?
Well, a Justice of the Peace actually is a judge.
Right.
It's just the type of court that they are presiding over.
Okay.
And the Justice Court is what a Justice of the Peace is the judge for.
Okay.
So that's the difference between like a district court judge and a Justice of the Peace. It's just the type of court that they are the judge in.
So if you are a judge in a justice court, you're considered a Justice of the Peace, or does that depend on your location?
No, you are considered a Justice of the Peace as a judge in a justice court in Nevada.
Okay.
So, yep, any of the justice courts throughout the state, the judges in those courts are considered Justices of the Peace.
Cool. All right. I have a whole bunch of information about you and your history and all that stuff. And I'm not really going to go into that, and I'll tell you why. Mm-hmm. We can go to your website, and we can find all of this information. So I want to find out the information that's not there. First of all, why the hell would you want to be a judge?
Well, that is a good question, because when I looked to apply and then I started talking to people about the process to get there, I asked myself that same question. It's a lot of work to be able to be a judge here. For me, it came down to this. I've been an attorney here for about 20 years, and I love the law, and I love being an attorney. I recognized, though, recently, well, I don't remember how I started to think about this, that attorneys have there's certain things that make you a really good attorney, and there's certain things that make really good judges. A good attorney is advocating for their client. They're taking a position and they're advocating for that position. And a good judge is someone who's willing who has a demeanor to kind of see all sides and make decisions that are just and fair based on the advocates that are there. I started to recognize that although I can advocate for a client, that my real skill is the other skill. Okay. The skill that a judge needs to do well is to be able to see all sides and to be able to look at all the information and to evaluate what is the right decision, what is the thing that the law should do in any circumstance. And for me, as I started seeing that, I thought, you know what, if I want to really use my skills to my best ability, that's where I should be, because that's what I started recognizing my better skill set was. And so that's why I decided to run. I decided to run in the Justice Court because recently, in the last 4, 5, 6 years especially, I've started to focus more of my practice in the Justice Court. I'd been doing stuff in it before, but I've done a lot more in the last 5 years or so. And I started to see it as a place that I think I could do the most good, especially for my community in Henderson. And so that's why I decided to run. I wanted to serve my community, and I thought that was a place that I could actually use the skills that I think I have developed the most effectively for our community.
Right. What is the difference between Justice Court and District Court? You had mentioned both. So what are the difference?
Well, see, it's try to explain it as simply as I can. The district court is what a lot of us call a court of general jurisdiction, and that's a complicated word that just basically means they can hear most cases that would be issues that the state would have. That's a general jurisdiction court, and the district court also obviously has family law, and it's all part of that one district.
Okay.
The Justice Court is what people sometimes call a court of limited jurisdiction. It is a court that's jurisdiction only covers certain types of cases and certain types of issues. And so that's what the Justice Court is designed to be. In really general terms, there are certain types of criminal law that's in the Justice Court. Mostly it's misdemeanors and those types of things. And then as far as what's called civil law, which is when people are suing each other, the Justice Court covers issues between landlord and tenant, especially about the possession of property. So, like all of your eviction cases, and it covers all kinds of cases as long as the amount of damages claimed are less than $15,000.
Less than 15?
Less than 15.
Okay. So like traffic tickets and things like that, that all falls under the Justice Court?
Correct.
Okay.
The other issue there is most cities like Henderson and Las Vegas also have what's called a municipal court.
Okay.
And within the city's jurisdiction, the municipal court often will end up handling a lot of your traffic and other types of cases. In Henderson, for example, specifically, the amount of traffic and misdemeanor type cases in the Justice Court is relatively small because the municipal court handles most of those. Right. The difference is, and again, these are things that the city has a certain area it covers, the municipal court, and technically the Justice Court sometimes covers a slightly different area, maybe slightly larger than the actual city limits, what's called a township. And so there's a difference in the area they cover, and that's where the Justice Court may cover more of the misdemeanor and other things like that aren't handled within the city.
And so you chose the Justice Court because those are the type of cases that you've become more familiar with in your career, or the cases that you're more interested in? In other words, these are the kind of cases I'd like to be involved in, as opposed to murder and,
Well, there's several reasons I chose the Justice Court. First of all, it's in Henderson, where I live,
right,
and where I want to serve that community.
Sure.
And so that's one reason. Second of all, I had started to be in Justice Court a lot more, and I thought it was a place that I could offer my skills in that specific area of jurisdiction. And especially in the last several whiles, I've spent a lot of time, especially with landlord-tenant law, but I've also done other cases in the Justice Court. And the last reason is that to me the Justice Court is like the People's Court. It's where I get to know more people, and sometimes people have to represent themselves in Justice Court. It's harder to find attorneys to do that kind of court. Sometimes their cases aren't big enough to warrant hiring an attorney, but they're still important cases, and they're still important things where people need to be able to get their to seek redress or defend themselves. And my experience as Justice Court made me feel like that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to be closer to the people and to be there helping the people.
So in a Justice Court, if I'm not mistaken, the types of cases are basically decided by the judge. You don't have a jury trial, or could you have a jury trial case in a Justice Court?
You can have jury trials in Justice Court.
Okay.
They aren't as common because of the type of cases that are handled, but there are certain types of cases where you can have a right to a jury trial. The Nevada's rules, my understanding is that as far as criminal matters, the right to jury trial doesn't really kick in until it's something that is you could face 6 months or more of jail time.
Gotcha.
Right. So in that case, there are certain types of misdemeanors and things in Justice Court that can have that type of penalty. So jury trials can happen in the Justice Court. Again, they're not as common, but there are things where they would have a right to a jury trial if they wanted it. In the civil cases, it's the same way. You can demand a jury trial in Justice Court in the civil cases. They're not as common again, and it depends on what you're asking for. Certain types of they call them remedies, which is like what you're asking the court to do.
Right.
Allow for a jury trial, and some don't. For example, if you're asking for something to give you possession to property, like you're saying, hey, these people are in my property and they're not supposed to be there, and you ask the court to give what's called a writ to let you take possession, that's what's called an equitable claim. So that's something that a judge does, as opposed to if you're suing for damages and you're saying, hey, this guy owes me this money, or he breached our agreement, or whatever else thing. Those damage claims can give rise to a right to a jury trial. And again, some people don't want one, so they don't ask for one,
right,
but they have the right to ask for them in certain situations.
One of the things that I've heard a lot from attorneys, well, not a lot, but I have enough to make it an issue for me to ask a question, is that some attorneys find that they go before a judge who is not really prepared to rule on their case. They haven't done their homework, or they just don't have the information that they need. As an attorney, have you found that to be the case? And don't name any names.
That's fair. I have seen that all. I have seen judges very prepared, where they knew exactly what the issues that they thought were important, and they had tried to identify the things that were important for their decision and came in prepared to try to discuss those in a hearing. I have also seen it where judges are not. And it is a difficult thing for a judge in Clark County, because my experience is all of the judges have a very high caseload. They have a lot of cases.
And that was going to be my next question.
Right. And but again, as a judge, the most important thing to me is that every single person who comes before the court needs to feel like I care about their case and I want to make it right for them. And I want to take the time to do that for them. Some cases are bigger, some are smaller, but every one of those cases is important to somebody. And I want them to understand that I want every one of them to understand that their case is important to me to get right. And that the second part is that I want people to feel like they've been heard. That's the point of our court system. Part of it is to make decisions and try to be to the best we can with a not perfect system,
right,
but something that do the best we can to provide justice. But the other part of it is just this idea of due process, that everyone has the right to be heard, even if they're wrong, even if maybe their position isn't the right one under the law. They have a right to put their position out there, or at least try to say, hey, this is what I think is important, and they have a right to at least be heard and have their due process. And that's the thing I think is important for a judge to help do, is make those things happen. And that's what I want to do as a judge. And I want, as an attorney, I spend a lot of time on cases. Most attorneys will tell you they get really busy and they have to spend extra time. Judges are the same way. I know that it's not like it's an 8 to 5 job,
right?
and we need to take the time to know the cases we're doing and be prepared to address the issues when people come before us.
How is the number of judges in a jurisdiction determined? I mean, how does the city of Las Vegas or the county or Henderson determine this is how many judges we should have?
Right. Well, I think it's based on, my understanding is based on population.
Okay.
That as the population grows, the statutes give the legislature authority to add more departments, say to like the district court or to the justice court. I think it might be somewhat political on how I've never done that, but
right,
I've read the statutes that say it's based on population. And so the thing that we will always have, I think, in our court system, though, is as a community grows, the court's always behind.
Yeah, we'll never catch up.
We're never going to catch up. We're always going to be busy. A lot of attorneys will say, well, the solution is just to get more judges and get more judges. And they're right. But at the same time, we have to be realistic in knowing that we're just going to be behind the eight ball. And as a judge, we have to accept the fact that we're going to have a lot of cases, and we're going to have to do our best to stay on top of them. And if it means doing extra things, I know justice courts, we have to be on call sometimes on the weekends when the police want warrants or stuff like that. And that's something I'm willing to accept doing, is just doing what needs to be done to make sure that court system works properly, and that it's doing the things it's supposed to do, both to protect us, to enforce the laws, and to help people resolve their disputes.
Is there a way within the system to help reduce the number of cases or the caseload that the judges have? I mean, I know that there are in various situations there are diversion programs, for drugs and alcohol and things like that. Is that helpful? And I mean, I would imagine it is, but is from your perspective, are those kinds of things helpful in reducing the caseload, other than stopping crime?
Yeah. No, I mean, criminal and civil have different purposes.
Right.
So I can. But with that being said, I think they are, generally speaking, especially you're talking. There's two different kinds I can think of. Like, first of all, there's those criminal diversion plans, like the specialty courts for drug addiction, for mental health. Sometimes those exist for veterans.
Right.
The purpose of those is to help those people that have those issues kind of create other ways for them to get back into society, right? And those have a definite purpose to help improve our society and make people better. I mean, the criminal justice system.
But isn't that part of the purpose of our justice system? Is not just to mete out punishment, but to find a way to, and I hate to use the word, but I'll use it anyway, rehabilitate, the population, or that, if I come before you for some kind of crime, and maybe judges, if I'm not mistaken, have a certain amount of leeway within the law. In other words, here's a minimum and maximum punishment, and you are able to make a decision that this is justified or this isn't, or circumstances have are created that I know why you're here and it's not. Is that making any sense? Is that making any sense to you?
There's no question that the justice system, the criminal justice system, it is not solely there to just punish. That's part of it, because the idea is we want to deter people from doing bad things.
Of course.
But it's also, we recognize there are certain people in our society that sometimes that punishment doesn't end up deterring them because they've got these other issues, addictions, mental health, on and on. And if we're not addressing those at all, the punishment isn't really doing anything to make it more safe.
Right.
So yes, there is a purpose that, we have to, and as a judge, the other part of it is, my understanding is that there's certain areas that we call, where judges have what we call discretion.
Right.
There's parts of the law that, this law I got to follow, this I got to follow. And then there's areas where it's like, okay, the judge has discretion based on certain factors on what they should do. And there is a place for that. And I think the most important thing a judge can do is make sure that they're analyzing those factors consistently and evaluating how they exercise their discretion to meet the ultimate goal, which is, safety. When it comes to criminal justice, is to make sure our streets are safe, people are protected, and make sure we're deterring bad behavior or helping people fix their bad behavior. With civil cases, it's different, and that's what I wanted. The other part of your question is, we're a litigious society. We like to file lawsuits.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes it makes change. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's not. That's
we can thank television for that.
That's right. But the point of civil litigation, really, the heart of it is to help people resolve their disputes. And if you can create programs that help people do that, that's why sometimes settlement programs and other things are helpful, especially for certain types of cases where really you just have to help both sides see what the real issues are. And sometimes they can at least reach an agreement where they're like, okay, maybe this makes sense for us to resolve it this way, because every judge is different.
Sure.
We do our best to make the right decisions.
But you're still human.
You're human. When we try to make a decision, someone's going to disagree with us. If the parties can come together, if we can facilitate that helps resolve disputes, that help us live peacefully together. That's our goal in the justice system, is help people resolve their differences. And there's principles and rights that we all have, and there's things we try to do, but that's one of the goals of it. And if we can help people get there, then we should have programs to help them do that. And that sometimes it takes more work, but it's worth it. But that can resolve anything we can do to educate people and help them understand what their rights are and maybe what the law does for them. It can help them see how cases should resolve.
Right.
And then it can help them lessen the load of actually having to go through the justice system to resolve their dispute. They can reach an agreement that everyone is, usually when you settle a case like that, it's no one's like perfectly happy, but they can realize, I can live with this, and maybe it's better for me to.
Yeah, I've always heard if both sides are happy, you're doing something wrong.
No, there's some truth.
Or
to that.
if both sides are a little unhappy, then you're doing something right. So.
Right, and in the justice court, there's different programs that are involved, like. Sometimes when, like, the small claims, which is where people who have smaller things that usually attorneys don't get involved in, when they come for their trial, there's often someone there. They have a system set up and say, "Hey, you want to come talk to me and see if we can resolve it before going?"
Yeah, like an arbitrator or something.
Or they call them mediators, but yes. Okay. So those things are very helpful.
as a judge, what do you think is the number one most important thing that you should do or have as a judge?
I think a judge's most important role is to ensure that people's individual rights of due process are protected. It depends on where you are in the system too. As a justice court judge, really it's important for me to know the law and follow the law.
Right.
I'm not a Supreme Court judge who's coming up with the policies and the laws. I'm not a legislator who's thinking about those things. I want to make sure I'm following those systems that are made. That the legislature has a right to make laws. I should enforce the laws they make. The Supreme Court has a certain area where they give guidance. I should listen to their guidance and follow those principles in my courtroom. So I think it's important. My job would be to make sure the law is followed and to make sure that those that come before me, that their rights are protected in the process so that they can feel, walk away from it not always happy with the result, but they can feel like, well, I was heard. I had a right to be heard. Those rights were protected, and
You were treated fairly.
I was treated fairly in the process. And really, a civil court system is to try to help people resolve their disputes peacefully. That's why it's there.
Yeah.
And one last point I would say.
Yeah,
on that,
please. That's
is that that goes to like maybe the most important thing actually. Now that I think about it, is that we need a court system that the public trusts. And so
more and more so, I think today that's critically important. So
right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right, and so we need, and a judge should be concerned about making sure that the public trusts their court. It's not going to be perfect. We all are human, but we want a court system that the public can say this is a place legitimately that I can resolve my disputes, that I can get redress from wrongs, and that it works. And if they don't feel like it works, it's not going to. So you need a system that the public trusts. And as a judge, I think that's probably my most important job.
Yeah.
Is to continue to do things and to act in a way and to create, do my part in making sure that the judicial system maintains the trust of the public.
So, well, we have a couple of minutes left. Would you like to tell the voters out there why they should vote for you, why you feel that you are the best candidate for this position? And
I think I just want people to know that I care. I'm running to be a judge because I want to be able to help people who come before me, and I care. I care. You want a judge who cares about your case and about your situations, and I will be that judge. That's number one. And I want people to know that in the Henderson, the other thing is in the Henderson court, the Justice Court. I have more experience as a civil attorney in civil things than criminal, although I have done some criminal. But this Henderson Justice Court specifically is, if you look at the filings, there's way more civil filings in the Henderson Justice Court than criminal. And sometimes the people forget, they think that we just have to have criminal people in there. It's important to have civil people in there that know how the civil system works and have done it. And I'm that judge that can hear your cases and make sure that every person that comes before me, you can know that you're going to be heard. And that if a lot of voters, when your life is going well, and hopefully it goes well for all of you, you may never even see me or know that I'm there. But know that if you're ever in a problem, you want good judges on the bench that will make sure that you're protected. That's all.
Well said.